Hello, BookTube. This is Weekler Reads. I've had a mixed reading week. There were some bails, there were some bright spots, and there's what I'm currently reading. So let's get going. So, like last week, this reading week was a bit weird on a few fronts. My mother's birthday was on Saturday, and my aunt, or two of my aunts, came to visit to spend my mom's birthday with her, and then we went over to my brother's. So I didn't have as much reading time as I had hoped, although under the circumstances, it didn't really matter. And then on Monday, my mom had a doctor's appointment that when these happen, I usually bring a slim volume of poetry or a shorter work, so that it will fit in to a bag or the little pocket of my mom's wheelchair. So anyway, so the visit was really good. My aunt's visit was really good. I made a German chocolate cake, which I think I will try to show you. It turned out fantastic. It's the first time I ever made a German chocolate cake from scratch, and it really turned out. Um, so it was really good. Um, anyway, so my plan for Saturday and into Sunday was to read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy by John le Carre. So I'm participating in a number of BookTube events in November. Probably too many, but anyway. And one of them was Dr. November, which is an event created by Mark of Book Time with Elvis, in which participants read spy fiction set, written, or published in or during the Cold War, which, for the purposes of Dr. November, is pushed back to 1917 and the Russian Revolution. So I don't have much in the way of spy fiction, and while spy nonfiction is also allowable, I don't have any of that either. So I picked for my nonfiction, since November is also nonfiction November. I picked Collapse: The Fall of the Soviet Union by Vladislav M. Zubak as a bail redemption, and it didn't go well, so it was a bail redemption rejection. But anyway, but going back to fiction, I did have this omnibus of Le Carre's work. I also had an omnibus of some James Bond novels by Ian Fleming, which I got rid of earlier this year, along with the two standalone novels, or they were individual novels. So anyway, so I decided on Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is a novel about George Smiley. He is a high-ranking, or was, depending whether or not he's in the service or retired during any one of the novels he appears in. But in this case, George Smiley is a year out from being forcibly retired after a disastrous mission saw the chief of the circus, Le Carre's term for British intelligence and his novels, ousted. So George Smiley is brought back when evidence is presented that there is a high-ranking mole within the circus. And Smiley, along with former members of the service and outsiders in the service, investigate to determine who the mole is. So I watched the 2011 movie starring Gary Oldman, and I quite liked it. And I wanted to read the novel. So I checked out a copy from the library, and it didn't go well. I just didn't connect to it. And that's true of most of what I've read of Le Carre. I've also tried The Night Manager, and I think The Constant Gardener. I could be wrong on the last one, but I didn't get on with any of them. And so this is also a Belle redemption, and it's a Belle redemption rejection. Again, I could not get into it, and I've heard that Le Carre is the best of the spy fiction writers, and honestly don't see it. Um, the writing did not impress me, it did not hook me, it did not interest me. So this omnibus and The Night Manager will be going on its way at the next book purge. So that did free up my Sunday, and I decided to read Hyena by Mikita Brottman. So this is an entry in the Animal series from Reaction Books. So the Animal series is a series of slim, usually less than 200-page books that focus on a specific animal. The book looks at the natural history, biology, cultural history, economic potential, so on and so forth of various animals. And I've had a mixed reaction to the series. Some of them have been really good, particularly the more recent ones. They've really connected to me a lot more than the earlier ones, which tend to be mostly cultural criticism of the specific animal, and those can be really bad. Hyena largely avoids that, although Brottman is writing from a critical perspective that I am not a fan of. I despise psychoanalysis immensely. But one of the highlights of Hyena is Brottman's defense of the animal. The hyena is one of the least popular animals in the world, and Brottman tries her best to change that. Although I don't think she's nearly as successful as Richard Jones is in Wasp. But anyway, so this was pretty good, and it was, it was an okay read. I don't know necessarily if I really want to rethink my idea to collect the Reaction Animal series. I think I'll probably pick up ones that sound interesting and keep them if they're really good, but I'm not going to try to collect the whole series. No. And I had some time on Sunday left over, so I decided to go ahead and reread Seed Celestial by Sara R. Burnett. This is a slim volume of poetry that I picked up a few months ago. And I wanted to have a reread of the book to see of the collection to see whether or not I wanted to keep it in my collection. My first reading was decidedly mixed, and on a reread, I think there are a few poems that I really connect to or connect with, particularly the ones about education. But for the most part, the poems in this collection are misses. So I think at the next purging, Seed Celestial might be amongst the books purged. Although I do love this cover, it is amazing. And on Monday, I read Mass for Shut-ins by Mary Alice Daniel. Again, this is a reread. I picked this up a few months ago when I picked up Seed Celestial, and in fact, I wanted this collection even earlier because Yale had a sale on a few months ago, and I was torn between 2 works of history and some poetry. And I decided on the 2 works of history, one of which turned out really well, and I picked this up a month or so later. Anyway, so again, I wanted to reread this collection to decide whether or not I wanted to keep it in my library. And I think for the most part, I had a much better reading experience with this collection on this reread than I did on my first reading. And I am going to keep this collection at least for another year, pending more rereads. Because I do tend to reread slim volumes of poetry quite heavily. So on Tuesday, I started on my reading for World War November, which is yet another booktube event taking place in November. I have no World War I fiction, which this year's iteration of World War November's focusing on. But I do have some nonfiction, and I decided to go with, at least for the first entry, The Sleepwalkers by Christopher Clark. So this is a history of how Europe went to war before World War I. And I'm liking the book. I'm not loving it. It's okay, but I'm really looking forward to being done with it. So I don't know what that says. I think I'm wanting to do something else right now, and I don't quite know what. So, yeah. So the book is divided into 3 parts. The first part looks at the 2 primary belligerents that caused World War I, Serbia and Austria, and the conditions in both states, well, kingdom in Serbia's case, and the dual monarchy of the Habsburg Empire for the later, and what the conditions were, what their relations were like, what their relations were like with other states. And the second part is the great powers and their interactions and what crises and diplomatic maneuverings and global politics led them to the alliance formulations that existed at the beginning of the World War. And then the third part looks at the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austrian throne, and the crisis that led to war. So one of the things about this book is that Clark does not lay as much of the blame on Germany as has been traditional. In fact, Germany seems to have been basically with Britain, France, and Russia coming together, that Germany became sort of written in as the bad guy. So that was interesting. So I'm still working my way through. Hopefully I'll finish it this weekend, but again, I'm really wanting to be finished with the book. So we shall see. Hopefully I don't bail on it over the weekend, but I don't know. I really need to work a bit more on that if I'm not feeling a book or I'm wanting it to be done, that I can move on to something else, and then come back to the book later. Anyway, so moving on to next week, outside of the Sleepwalkers, I'm hoping to get to a reread of Radioactive Starlings by Myronn Hardy. Again, this is a slim volume of poetry that I'm a bit mixed on. So I'm going to read this collection to see if I'm going to keep it or if I want to purge it, and also if I want to pick up Hardy's latest collection, which came out this year, again from Princeton University Press. And I also want to get to maybe, although I'm having second thoughts right now, The Fall of the Dynasties by Edmond Tailor. So this is a look at pretty much the collapse of the Habsburg, Hohenzollern, and Romanov dynasties in the aftermath of World War I. Anyway, so so that's my plan. Don't be surprised if it changes. If it changes drastically, I'm definitely feeling an urge to read something else. And I don't quite know if I'm wanting to really get a jump on December because there are 2 booktube events in December that I'm going to participate in. One of which will be a more like a traditional working, like participating in, and the other one is basically I'm going to build my own version of the event to another one because I have my own word for not finishing a book, bailing. And I come to really like the Bell Redemption December idea. So while I'll be participating in, the 2 booktube events I'll be participating in December are Reread December and I think it's DNF December. But since I use Bell Redemptions, for me it'll be Bell Redemption December because it just sounds cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah. But I guess don't be surprised if next week there are a lot of manga because I think I'm getting an urge to read a bit of manga. My book buying plan for November is not turning out how I thought it would. At the end of October and beginning of November, I thought my haul would be mostly history, but that is not what's happening at all. Anyway, so next week, hopefully I will have my original tag up on Monday. I've got the prompts written. I have the explanatory notes within the prompt done. I'm going to hopefully remember to get images so I can have like show and tell while I'm talking about each prompt because I don't really want to hold up the volumes I did on my tablet. And then hopefully there'll be some tag videos next week that I can do. And hopefully I'll be able to do some discussion videos because there are a number of discussion videos I would like to have. And they just don't work. And it annoys me immensely. So hopefully I will be able to work on that because, again, I am building up to a purge in the new year. And while I was thinking about the classics, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama shelves of whether or not Shakespeare should be exempt, whether the classics should be exempt. And I guess maybe I'm not entirely sure. Well, I think my answer is that absolutely Shakespeare is not exempt. That I'm going to, that if I can, I will probably get rid of my big complete works of Shakespeare because I'm not really all that interested in it. But yeah, I wanted to expand on that and kind of, I think, maybe have a better idea of what I want to say. And then also wanted to do a thing on the Reaction Animal series, and there are a few other topics. But unfortunately, the videos either didn't work out or I didn't have time to do them. Because this past week was a bit busy on a number of fronts. But anyway, BookTube, hopefully I will be able to get to more videos out next week, and one of them being a call for a Q&A, because I'm almost at 1,000 videos, and I would like to get to that before the end of the month. So anyway, BookTube, until I see you next week, thank you, have a great afternoon, evening, and weekend, and stay safe.